Your garage floors take a real beating. Everything from heavy vehicles to salt and sand and chipping and dropping things on it. So in this episode, we're going to cover some real simple, genius ideas for your garage floors that actually work. Let's get after it. First, let's talk about some concrete basics. Concrete's going to expand and contract naturally over time. It's prone to heavy weights like your vehicle and the elements outside. But, a lot of it has to do with the preparation on the front. When they excavate your home, if you're only doing concrete in your garage, they're going to put some sort of a base layer with a vapor barrier on top of it. And that depends highly on your climate, where you're at, whether you need a better one or something simple. And then a mesh on top of it, the concrete gets poured onto that mesh. Now, depending on when you're pouring the concrete, let's say it's in the winter time where you're battling freezing temperatures, or in the summertime where you're battling the sun and it's drying a little bit too fast, cracks are ultimately going to happen. During that pouring process, they'll either trowel in some expansion joints or come back when it's just about dry, where it's hard to the touch, but not quite completely cured, and they'll cut in some expansion joints. But what I'm getting at is no matter how hard you try, how much preparation you put into it, undoubtedly some cracks will happen. They're extremely unfortunate, and we have a major one right here. The simplest of garage floors is just to leave it bare. The concrete, the way they pour it, you leave it exactly the way it is. The pros to that are that it doesn't cost you any more money to leave it in this shape, obviously a little cleanup. But the con is that you can't conceal things. So they're very porous. If you have any sort of oil stains, or if your area is highly salted, you're going to track all of that in, and you ultimately have some marks from the tires. And if you spill some bleach or something, it will stain your garage floor. And you cannot conceal any sort of chips like we have here from the construction process. Taking your bare concrete to the next level is doing a polished concrete floor, and that's personally my favorite. It's a multi-step process of grinding down the concrete with progressively finer abrasives and then putting a really nice sealer on top. It does a couple of things. It gives you that finished modern look that looks almost wet-like, and it protects the concrete because, like I said before, it's very porous. So if you spill something, it's a nice, easy cleanup process. The cons, though, as you can imagine, are the cost, because it is a little bit more labor. Somebody has to come in and grind down the concrete and then put that sealer on top. But another really realistic, the most important one for me, pro to this, is that over time you can have it refinished at a relatively minimal cost. So let's say it's 5 or 6 years down the road, and you do have some tire marks in here or some chips or new cracks that have formed, and you don't like that look. Well, you come in, you buff it out, grind it down a little bit, put a sealer on top of it, and you have virtually a brand new floor all over again. For the ultimate in protection, appearance, and chemical resistance, consider an epoxy floor. It's the ultimate in floor protection, if you ask me. Some of the pros to this are the endless choices of colors and finishes. You can go with a nice dull matte finish on your floor or something very shiny. You can also add flakes for added slip resistancy. Now, some of the cons are really in the prep work and the cost. As you can imagine, there's a lot that goes into putting an epoxy floor down on bare concrete. You have to grind it down, or if you have older concrete, maybe a couple of different cleanings before the actual epoxy is applied, because you want it to adhere to that concrete so you don't have any chipping or flakes coming off later on down the road. I feel that the pros far outweighs those cons. So if you're like me and you want that ultimate in floor protection and appearance and that wow factor in your garage, go with the epoxy floor. If you're looking for something a little bit more sensitive to cost and budgets, go with a polished floor option. And if you're looking for something just more utilitarian, go with that bare floor. Any one of these 3 garage flooring options are great, and it highly depends on what works for you in your home. For us, it's going to be the bare floor concrete during this construction phase, and then once everything's complete, we'll come back in and give it that professional polished floor look. Now, let me know in the comments section what works for you. Around here, we say mock it up or mess it up. We'll see you next time.